Welcome into the Ohio State Football Report. I am Tom Downey. Coaching news and updates to lead today's show. First up, a new co-offensive coordinator has been promoted. Tight ends coach Keenan Bailey, continuing a kind of rapid rise for Bailey among the coaching ranks at Ohio State. He's going to stay as the tight ends coach, also adding that co-OC title. Now, we have hit the 9,000 sub mark. Thank you all so much. 10,000 subs is next up. Help us get there. Hit that sub button for more free Ohio State football YouTube videos, all off-season long, and then we'll get back to the regular season in the not-too-distant future. Bailey's rise has been pretty impressive, and I think probably indicates that he has a lot of fans in that building right now. He was a recruiting analyst to begin his career back at Notre Dame for a couple years, offensive intern for 3 seasons, quality control coach, special assistant to the head coach, the tight ends coach, and now, after 2 years in that role, becoming the co-offensive coordinator as well while retaining that tight end coach title. Ryan Day had this to say recently on Bailey as well, saying probably the most unsung hero on our staff, the hardest worker in the building. I'll be honest, I was surprised that this co-OC title come along the line for Bailey, and probably a pay raise coming for him as well. I will trust Ryan Day on this one. No one else has a better feel for the coaching staff than the head coach, right? I think there could be some Brian Hartline influence here as well, in terms of someone that Hartline wanted to be heavily involved in what he's going to do as the OC. I think there's also a chance that maybe a different team was trying to poach Bailey from the staff, and the pay raise title boost was more than enough to get him to stay, since you can't really go much more above tight ends coach than getting a offensive coordinator title. In general, I don't really mind this run it back approach. I think this makes sense. You're coming off a national championship. If you don't need a ton of change necessarily. I think getting the Virginia Tech OC to come in, and Tyler Bowen to be the O-line coach, I think that's a good move. You stole a sitting OC to come be your O-line coach. That's a win. Come on. Brian Hartline now the OC. Keenan Bailey gets the co-OC title. Billy Fessler gets promoted to quarterbacks coach. It worked last year. You don't need to have drastic changes necessarily. Some change, yes, because I don't want things to get stagnant. But I think these promotions and hiring Tyler Bowen certainly makes sense. Coming up next, we will have the latest on the defensive coordinator search, which in theory will be wrapped up soon, but has not been wrapped up as of filming. I want you guys to grade Ryan Day's coaching staff so far in the meantime. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the pinned comment, actually, of today's show. That outcomes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Now, as for the DC side, no official hire yet. Plenty of buzz about who it could end up being. We'll talk about some of the names that have been linked. Day wants to finalize the staff by the end of the week, or the beginning of the week is what he said last week, so in the next couple days. I guess none of the hires are technically official yet either. They'll probably do just one big press release, but they're going to hire the guys that they've been linked to, right? So the defensive coordinator job is the main one that's out there. It's the biggest job left. Here's what Day said recently to the Columbus Dispatch. We're still putting the finishing touches on it. I'm hoping by this weekend or the beginning of next week. Again, he said this on Friday. We'll have everything out there. We're making good progress. We obviously have a bunch of really good guys on staff, but a bunch of other guys who are obviously interested in the positions. So we're going to work hard to get this thing kind of ironed out here in the next few days. Now, one name that kind of picked up speed late last week and has kind of cooled off since then a little bit is Chiefs defensive line coach Joe Cullen. He has been linked to the Ohio State defensive coordinator job. He has heavy ties to Urban Meyer. They were together in Jacksonville back in 2021 in that ill-fated disaster class season. Has spent a little bit of time at the collegiate ranks, but he had the DC job back in 2021, had the Indiana DC job in 2020-24. That's kind of it from a play calling perspective, which I think is a valid red flag. Now, I've seen a lot of this conversation online as well. There was outright alcohol abuse from Joe Cullen back in 2006, had the DUI arrest as well. I do want to give him credit. Reportedly has been sober since then. It's a really long time to be sober, and that's a tremendous accomplishment. I give him a lot of credit for that. In general, with exceptions depending on what it is you did, I am willing to say it was 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. I'm sure he's a different person now. The big issue to me is he hasn't been a play caller, and he's a D-line coach background. I have Larry Johnson to handle that role, and he's awesome at what he does. And I do wonder how much the influence of Larry Johnson, and I think that was an issue for Jim Knowles too, could potentially impact this DC search. Now, do you want Ohio State recruiting updates? We haven't done a lot of those because we've had coaching search stuff to deal with. If you want that, though, hit that sub button for me right now. Now, 11 Warriors also mentioned 3 other names that are potential finalists for this DC position. I thought that maybe the Buckeyes wanted to wait for the Chiefs Super Bowl run to be over to hire Joe Cullen, but again, some recent buzz has been maybe that's not going to end up being the case. One big name here is Randy Bates, the Pitt defensive coordinator, who has plenty of ties to the Buckeyes and to the state of Ohio, frankly. He Kent State linebackers coach all those years ago. Has been the Pitt defensive coordinator for a tremendous amount of time since 2018, working closely with Pat Narduzzi. Was the Northwestern linebackers coach forever. He's 64 years old, and he went to Ohio State. He is an alum of the Buckeyes, or alumnus, I should say. Also gets the old Cradle of Coaches boost for being a GA briefly at Miami of Ohio. We'll talk some other internal candidates here in just a second, but what do you want to do when it comes to the DC? Type P for you want to go internal, promote somebody, or B for you want to bring somebody in from the outside. I don't have a huge rush here. I'm not like, you got to hire somebody right now, you're going to miss out on your guy. There's no one else who's out there looking for a defensive coordinator. Like, you're going to get to pick the guy you want to pick in the end. I don't want to let it drag on forever. At this point, with where you're at in recruiting, there's not a lot that you're going to miss out on necessarily. You want to have someone in there just to get someone in there, get them up to speed, get them going. There's jobs to be done at the CFB level. Coaching is kind of almost a year round. Like there's no off days. There's no month long break like you get in the NFL, or months long break like you get in the NFL. So I think that does matter. And I do wonder if in the end the Buckeyes just go, let's go with the internal hires. There are 2 guys that stand out with maybe a co-DC title coming down the line here. First up is Tim Walton, the Ohio State secondaries coach. He's been the DB's coach for several years now. Was the Jags and Giants corners coach. Has DC experience. The Rams, the Memphis Tigers years ago, Miami Hurricanes all those years ago. That was, 2007, 2008, 2013, briefly for the Rams. Cornerbacks coach background gives you the veteran experience. And then there's McArary, who I think is the young up-and-coming guy that I think the Buckeyes are very high on. I mean, Ryan Day went out of his way to praise Coach G at the championship kind of celebration, with Jim Knowles, of course, not there. He has been a co-DC, technically speaking, back in 2023 with Duke as well. He was a Jim Knowles guy, did not follow Jim Knowles to every job, but has a connection there. Has had a big-time rise. So I would not sleep, and this is why we put the number 1 on the first DC search anyway, the first DC candidates video, on the internal hire. My initial thought was, if you're going to do a promotion, it's probably an early move, because you want to hire them. You're not going to drag it out with a search. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe the Buckeyes are taking their time and trying to get the best guy in there, and not to say it's a fallback option, but that they did want to at least explore other candidates too. In the end, I've got confidence in this team and staff. They just won a national championship. Maybe that's rose-colored glasses, whatnot, or I guess scarlet-colored glasses. But they've earned that, I think.